The Camp Out for Hunger was actually our boss's idea, Jim, who thought that we should broadcast live somewhere on location for a certain amount of time and encourage people to come out, and we're going to stay here until we get a certain amount of food, and then we'll, move along. So we set up shop out in a parking lot. It was the old Adams Mark Hotel in Bala Cynwyd, and we had a little table with our little mixer and a couple of microphones, and that was it. I don't even know if we had a mixer. I think we just had microphones.
We always had an idea of it being something that was an expression of just a simple grassroots sort of thing where people were able to just come down with their bags and see us in the parking lot, and we purposely wanted to make it very lean and mean. So our original plan of having it what it is now, which is basically a full-blown circus, like a thing that's going on, no, but it had to become that.
It was great to connect with people as they were coming by, to actually see them participating as opposed to just asking for people to send in cash some way or another. And it felt great when we were done. It slowly, year after year, would expand just a little bit more. We'd get a little bit more food, we'd have more people stopping by, and then things just started to snowball after a while. Then when we got to WMMR, that's when it got really, really big. That's when we started really taking advantage of the audience that we had.
I don't think we could have ever have imagined it being as big as it is, and also the synthesis of it being two things, which would be a successful charity drive and a good week of radio as well. Because for it to work as a charity drive, it also has to be entertaining to listen to and incite people to come on down and participate. And to pull off both those things has been pretty well.
It's gone from a City Line Avenue barrel with some firewood in it, and I believe Preston was actually, or Steve were actually driving the forklift themselves to out to Plymouth Meeting, and then now down to the stadiums down in South Philadelphia.
So I was always a big fan of being, the forklift guy and moving it and actually doing it, to say, I'm investing the time. But just by the nature of what was going on, we'd see people showing up, and families were bringing kids down in strollers, and they wanted to hang and take pictures and talk with us. And we were outside in the conditions. It'd be brutally cold or snowing or raining or whatever, and they'd be out there trying to talk. And we realized at a certain point we had to cut ties with that.
I loved where it was out in Plymouth Meeting, but I always had a vision, and these guys around here got tired of me saying, I said, guys, we need to go big. Let's put it down in the stadiums where we can put a ton of people, get the biggest tent we possibly can, and just have tons of fun.
The goal of going to a place like Xfinity Live in the Wells Fargo Center is it can be bigger. All of a sudden, I have a concert series production venue that I built in the middle of a parking lot where there's nothing. Adding more things like live bands and like, hey, let's land. You know what? We can get Penn-Star to land a helicopter and bring food, and we can start doing movie night, and we can get these big giant video screens, and people can come around and have a outdoor tailgate and still see Preston and Steve.
When you're asking people to donate their time and their money, we want them to be getting something out of it too. Some entertainment, maybe a bite to eat, maybe a cup of coffee, maybe a ride on a carnival ride, maybe a night of comedy, whatever it is. So Philabundance is relying on this food and this money because it's been a steady source of food and money for the last almost 2 decades. What we can do is, spend weeks and months planning and letting people know where we're going to be and what we're going to be expecting, and that's non-perishable food items. And then we sit in a parking lot and we wait for people to show up, and they do, and they have for over 18 years now.
Hunger is still a major problem. This Camp Out for Hunger started 19 years ago, and today, hunger is still an issue in our society, and it's so important for us to get the word out that it is still a problem. Not just this time of year, but all year long. We need to be able to let people know that they can volunteer, they can donate, and they can just help their neighbors also in need. So one of the important things for people to know is $1 will provide 2 meals for people, and that about a pound of food is equivalent to 1 meal. So when we get 1 million pounds of food in, that feeds just over 1 million people, and it's an important thing for people to know. So that when all this food starts coming in, we're ready for it. We put out orders ahead of time to our 350 agencies. We'll put food out ahead of time if we can, so that opens up our staff to accept all this food. Well, I've got to give the website, right? www.philabundance.org, and on that website there's ways to both donate food, donate time as a volunteer at our Hunger Relief Center, and there's so many different ways for people to get involved. And it means everything to us for this, not only for this season, but also for letting people know about the problem about hunger in our community.
Something that changes up for Campout for Hunger for the entire week is that we try to look to have something every segment. And that means as many guests as we possibly can. That means calling in as many favors as we possibly can, finding out whoever is in town. When we do the show during the week, during the rest of the year, we fill in the gaps by finding things to talk about that are in the news or just something that happened to one of us. But during that week, we look to have a stunt and a guest and very few empty breaks. And it takes a lot of coordination between me and Casey and Kathy and Marissa, and then the promotions guys and the sales guys.
Individually, you book your own guests. We go to Casey and we say, here's everything, and he does an excellent job of scheduling that all so that it all gets in and we don't have a break where, there's nothing to do. So Casey does a nice job of making sure we get them all scheduled at a decent time and everybody gets their own time.
We make any sort of connections with somebody of a celebrity status or a charitable status. It's always on top of my mind. As soon as I meet somebody, I think, how am I going to get you out in November or December to come out to the campouts? We have to get silly things for stunts. We've done a really good job over the past few campouts creating like new games to play and tying them into clients. So I think, for instance, one year we had Campbell Soup, who would donate a can or a pound of soup every time a point would be scored in a game. So I think one year we involved Papa Shop, we're setting it up, or a suction cup bow and arrow set. So we had to find those. And it really helps the interviews and the attitude down there. It's hard to do a serious interview when you're in a tent and there's so much craziness going on. So when we have something fun to kind of make it easy for our guests.
So it's a big juggling act. It's a fun juggling act. It's kind of a huge puzzle to put all the pieces together. It's all 6 people on the show working really hard and paying attention to the entire week. And then everybody that works at the station. It's not just a show effort. It's programming and promotions and sales and engineering, certainly.
So many different people come together to make it happen, and the volunteer effort is a huge part of that.
It's really amazing. We have so many clients that will talk about Campout, and you'll say to them, this is what it is, this is what it's all about, and they don't get it until you're there. We try not to put quote unquote, the booths and the advertising spaces out at Campout, but really bring clients that have something to either contribute to the show, clients that come out and feed the listeners or give free massages or whatever it might be. It can either be involved in the station with the jocks and the programming or something that gets more involved with the listeners.
The one thing about Campout is we won't do anything with a sponsor, with an advertiser, on site, if it ultimately doesn't benefit Philabundance. And everybody on the team knows that, whether it be promotion, programming, sales, or even the guys on air. So they all know one goal, and we're seamless. I mean, if we say, hey, we want to do X, promotions figures out we can't do X, but we'll do Y. But again, ultimately, how are we making this more beneficial, and how can we make Campout better? I've seen people come in with carloads and truckloads full of food, but then to see that one person comes in with 3 cans and says, here, thank you. You guys have helped me. So to see it come in off the street in the cold, in the rain, with the people putting it into bins and then taking it down to Philabundance and then giving it out, it's pretty heartwarming. And bottom line, we're doing a lot of good. And it's not just us; it's really the listeners, and it's the clients, it's the sponsors, it's the listeners who just put it all together. So we couldn't do it without them. We're just help facilitating the whole thing.
At the end of the day, it's about the charities, it's about giving back, it's about community, it's about feeding the people in Philadelphia. So who really cares if you're giving $10,000 or $10? At the end of the day, it each feeds a person or multiple people.
Our audience embraces it, our station, our management really loves it and gets behind it, and it's just a really feel good. Our volunteers who come out of nowhere some people take vacation, they'll take vacation for a week and come there, during the holidays and spend it helping us out. It's unbelievable. It's humbling.
To see somebody that has been a recipient of food donations or assistance from an organization like Philabundance along the way, to see them come back and donate food, volunteer their time, spread the word, tell their story so that folks that aren't familiar with it can get a feel for why it's so important for people to donate to a cause like this.
It impacts the entire Delaware Valley. My mom actually works at a homeless shelter, and they actually get from Philabundance. So, you know, I kind of see it even on a little bit closer level.
I did have a lot of involvement with the food bank and Philabundance back when I was younger, doing some operations for a bunch of shelters. So I saw directly how it affected the things that they do are able to help people in our area.
So it always puts a smile on my face when I see a familiar face walk into the tent or walk up to the donation area. If I see somebody I went to school with, I've seen old teachers. You know, it's really, really great because, you know, it's just a reminder that this whole thing is about the people who are struggling. You know, that could be our next door neighbor that you don't know if they're having a hard time making ends meet.
It's mind-blowing. I mean, you want to say this without sounding trite or commonplace or overly maudlin, but it's incredibly heartwarming. It's one of those weeks where there is at least one story that gets you and makes you well up with emotion. And it's the little kid that brings in the 58 cents in her piggy bank to the person that was on Philabundance the year before and has decided to help out the following year.
And when you see that familiar face, you know, it's just there's nothing like it. It's great.
Is there a downside to having a lot of what they're getting rely on one event? Yes, but it also speaks to the generous nature of people and how everyone views the Campout for Hunger. So yes, it's the onus is on the event itself, but every time, for every year that we've done it, regardless of what the economy's been or regardless of what's been going on, people of this area rise to the challenge and make it work. We're not being falsely modest. We'd just be sitting in a parking lot if the people didn't show up and make it work. So it's the single largest, it blows our minds to say it every time we say it, the single largest, single sponsored food drive in the country. So, yeah, which is pretty amazing.
It's one of those weeks where you feel good about Philadelphia, you feel good about our region, and you feel good about humanity. I mean, that might, I'm not trying to sound magnanimous about it, but you feel better about people after a week like that.
One of Steve's phrases I always use is like, bring us food, you know, and we'll do the rest.
This is a save the date announcement. So you count on this event, but we definitely have to, and we count on you for this event, but we definitely have to give you the specifics, the details. It is time once again to put into your calendar Preston and Steve's Campout for Hunger. Yeah! And this is going to be Monday, November 28th through Friday, December 2nd. And ladies and gents, we're headed back to Xfinity Live. So jot it down, put it in your calendar now. Monday, November 28th through Friday, December 2nd. And we will be collecting non-perishable food, of course, for Philabundance.